Good day. It's Peter Temple from the New Earth Rising channel in Telegram with a calendar update. And this calendar, I think, will be a shorter version because we really are at the end. This is for people that are awake. The normies out there that are still asleep won't get this, so there's no point watching it and coming back to me with, this isn't going to happen and what are you talking about? This is for people that are awake, for starseeds and other people that have been awake for quite some time and are actually here to help raise the vibrations of the earth and get us to 5D. Now, I got to apologize in that I have been going through ascension symptoms myself, and they've been really tough. You don't want to go through these, but it's like a great big detox where they actually take out all of the bad crap out of your pores, and it goes on. This has gone on for me for 2 months, so it's been a little spotty getting these out. I apologize for that. Not a lot I can do about it. And we're just soldiering through here. So what I want to do today is just pick up from, really here we are today, pick up from the 29th, 2026. So that's June the 29th on the Gregorian calendar. Now the Gregorian calendar is the one that we are used to all of our lives. Okay, it's the satanic calendar. And it was changed in 1582 by Pope Gregory III. And now we're trying to get back to the real calendar, which is the Julian calendar down here with these red numbers. Okay, so you can see we've got the 8th of June here on the Gregorian, and you subtract 13 days, and you'll get down to the date on the Julian calendar. So the Julian calendar is 13 days behind. And we need to get those two calendars back together again before we actually have the real date. So there's going to be some changes in dates. It's interesting where we are this weekend. And going into the final 2-week, I believe it's the final 2-week rundown, and that will end on actually it's going to end on 7/12. Now there's a little story behind this. Why do I think it's going to end on 7/12? Well, here is 7/11 the day before. 7/11 we know is Jesus' birthday. That is a perfect time, and you can call that Easter if you like, but it's a perfect time to end this entire 10-year extravaganza, the military operation that's been ongoing, and we're looking at that 2 weeks from now. So that's where we're leading. And I'm not going to go back through a lot of this information here. I am going to just mention one thing, or a couple of things, I guess. Solstice happened, which takes us into summer, and that's a lot of light coming in from solstice, and that was on the 21st of June, and here it is it's on the Gregorian calendar, and that one has kind of led into 2 days later. We were told that on the 23rd in Congress, which is just only partially there, most of Congress is gone now, and what's replacing the ones that have left are people from actors from Central Casting. So it's pretty well, there isn't really a Congress. There's actually 2 Congresses. This is the Congress I'm talking about, which relates to USA Inc., which was the foreign government installed by the cabal in 1871, which is now defunct. So it has been taken down, and we now have a republic in place in the U.S. And we have, because I'm in Canada, I'll talk a little bit about Canada today as well. And in Canada, we really don't have a government. It's very similar to the U.S. We had a foreign national government here called Canada Inc., INC. It's a corporation, and it's the same sort of thing as we had with USA Inc. in Washington, D.C. It was a foreign corporation. It was incorporated in France. The one in Canada was incorporated in Washington, D.C. So everything is connected. But going back over here to the 23rd, 23rd equals pain, we were told that Congress was going to read out the names, one a day for 8 days, or sorry, not one a day, but they were going to read out the names to get through all of the Epstein files, the people that had actually visited the island, and that would take 8 days. Well, I don't think it's happened. Now, Congress is pretty well gone. The only people left in Congress now, probably a few good people, but mostly central casting actors. They've all been arrested, and that is the cabalish version, and that was the Washington, D.C. version. There's also a Congress in Pennsylvania, which is the new Congress for the Republic of the U.S., and I digress a little bit, so we'll just leave it at there for that. The 23rd was the Gregorian date. There's also a 23rd down here, which is the Julian date, and that's been one of the challenges with these calendars. There's two different calendars, and you don't know whether when they give you a date, whether they're talking about the Gregorian calendar or the Julian calendar, the real calendar. But the military works on the Julian calendar, and those are the red numbers. So some of the times we're dealing with Gregorian numbers, and some of the times we're dealing with Julian numbers, but the real calendar is Julian. So this may happen starting here on the 23rd and go for 8 days. Not sure if that's happening or not. Sometimes you hear these things and you hear about them later on, but they're going on in the background, so I don't know whether that's the case. But I just wanted to point that out. That's a good example of how difficult it is to know where we are. On the 24th, you remember that was just a few days ago, we had that huge rally in Washington, D.C. with all the flyovers. So that has ended, and then we have had some quiet in here, really kind of the calm before the storm. And then we have the 14th here, which on the Julian calendar, which relates to these mountains. And the mountain graphic is over here, and you can see we have a 1, 2, 3 on the tops of these mountains. There's a 1 there, and a 2, and a 3. And then you get 4, 5, 6, 7, and then all the way to 13. And then in this heart, there is the number 14. And this is a very important graphic, because I think this tells us that taking off from the 14th is going to give us the end of this movie. So it begins, and that is on the 14th right here. So that would tell us that we're, 3 days to set up. That's what that suggests to me. 3 days to set up in here. This is the scare event, and then we would go into the emergency broadcast system for 10 days. And then we have here 7/11, which is Jesus' birthday, and that would end off everything pretty well. July the 4th, which we've been talking about, the 1776 Independence Day celebration, that's here. 7 days later is 7/11. And, people have said, well, we're hearing people, well, what if it doesn't end on July the 4th? Because we have a lot of people expecting this entire process to end on July the 4th. I don't believe that's going to happen. It's an important date for sure, but more important, overarching that, is Jesus' birthday. And that's what this is really all about. If you go up to a higher level, this is the second coming of Christ. He is here live in the body of JFK, but it's a different body. He doesn't look the same as JFK did in the old days, so he's been reincarnated into a body that is really the mind and consciousness of JFK, the original JFK, who was assassinated on November the 22nd, 1963. Oh, I'm old enough to remember that, that's for sure. Anyway, that's our graphic there, leading into, interestingly enough, on the 28th, which was yesterday, here we are here on the 29th today, the Ides of March. 3/15 on the Julian calendar. You'll find March the 15th is the Ides of March, when Julius Caesar was assassinated in 44 BC. We had the Save America Act, which was passed apparently yesterday. And we just heard about that last night. And that has to do with the voting in the U.S., and that means that we can have real elections in the U.S. and virtually everywhere else around the globe. So a lot of the things I'm going to talk about here would be the U.S. and some Canada, but this, GESARA is a worldwide event. So when the money, for example, comes out, it's going to come out all around the world, but it's going to come out in two stages. We're going to have the humanitarian effort, which is the people that are awake right now who have got currency, and there's going to be the currency evaluation. I believe it's just somewhere in here, after the full moon. Normally, the market comes down when you have a full moon. It'll be the day after, the waning of the full moon. So we get the full moon today. We're told that the CERN is shutting down, and people have said, well, it's going to shut down for, I've had 4 months, I've had 4 years. I've heard it's going to shut down forever, so we'll have to see what happens. But that should be sometime today. And the last time that happened, they had a market crash. So that's kind of a foreshadowing of the market crash, if you like. This is today's date down here, 3/16 on the Julian, the 29th on the Gregorian. So I believe the market top is probably on the 30th or the 1st, and then we go into D class, which is the emergency broadcast. I would think that the Statue of Liberty and 34 buildings is going to come down during the scare event, and I believe we're in the scare event right now. So that means it should happen pretty darn fast, because here we are here, and we only have really a day left. I put this in a kind of gold backing here in terms of colors. 3 days setting up the emergency broadcast, but it's also probably the RV. The market will come down, and I think the RV probably starts. That's the revaluation of currencies, and it also ends up triggering the distribution of cash to the humanitarians. Later on, after this is over, we will have the distribution of cash to the other 80% of the population. So that's the idea. Now, I talked about this being the end, 7/12. The reason for that is that, of course, Jesus' birthday is on the 11th. But the other reason, I've talked about this before, is I have been woken up. I got woken up again yesterday night at 2:17 in the morning. And I've been going by 2:17, but it became obvious about a week or 10 days ago that we're talking about the mirroring of this number to be July the 12th. I had asked my guardians, and we all have guardians, to look after us, to make sure if you're a starseed, that's what you have to protect you. But I asked them, when is this going to end? And they gave me the number. They woke me up about 20 times at this particular time, this minute, 2:17. I also did get 1:27 as a wake up, so 1 a.m. and 27 minutes. And I've had 2 a.m. and 17 minutes, but the numbers turned out to be the mirror of those numbers, and it's 7/12. So that fits with the 7/11 date and Jesus' birthday, which would round this off. Makes perfect sense to me. You call this Easter if you like, but it is, we have been told, Jesus' birthday, and it's really the same thing as 9/11, because it depends on what calendar you're using. And in the new calendar we're going to, which is going to be 13 months, it's called the lunar calendar. We're going to have a lunar calendar of 13 months, and each of those months will have 28 days. And you can see here we've got the number 28. So this is actually a month going from here, 3/1, down to 3/28. So that is the month of June. And then on the Julian calendar, and then here we have the start of July on the Gregorian. I know it's confusing, so we'll just now pretty well stick to Gregorian from here on in. Anyway, back to where we are today. We've got a full moon, the strawberry moon, and as I say, that typically in a normal market would mean that we would have a top here, and we would, on the waning of the moon the next day, typically the market comes down. There's going to be a big crash here. And then we should go to black. And when I say that, the lights will go out, and that will be the turnover to electricity out of the ether, so free electricity, because they have to have full control of the electricity before they can run the emergency broadcast system. Last week, they had a conversion over to Starlink, and we saw intermittently the internet go down and get moved over. So we are on the Starlink system. And the Starlink system, of course, is the satellites all around the world that are going to run the quantum financial system. And they are also going to allow the new cell phones, the Q phones that we're going to get, they will allow us to have free access to cell phones. We actually get a free phone, and we're going to have free access anywhere in the world. So you could be out on a boat in the Pacific Ocean, and you will still be able to have cell service once everything is set up. So that's already set up, and we're going to see it come into fruition very quickly. So the full moon, the CERN shut down, which of course is the collider in Europe, and that was a satanic, they were using that satanically, and I think that is going to come down for good. Yeah, I could be wrong there. They may do the 4-year thing and then bring it back online. I'm not sure. But it seems to me that, and I have been hearing that, don't believe this shutting it down for a period of time. It's actually going to come down 100%. So we'll see what happens there. I don't know one way or the other. Then, as I say, the scare event should have the Statue of Liberty and the 34 buildings, I believe, will be here. The other place this could come in would be at the end. But it seems to me, we've always heard that we're going to have these come down. We're going to black. They're going to change to free electricity, and that would set up the emergency broadcast system. I still think that's going to happen. So there's the scare event. 3 days. It's been building, and with the Iraq arrests this week, that sets up the ability for the market to trigger to the downside, and that should also be in tandem with the revaluation of currencies, because they're all going to revalue to be equal to each other right around the world. And that's what gives you the difference in dollar values, which will be returned to the people. So if you've got foreign currency, very soon we're going to get what we call the RV, but it's the distribution of the difference in the currencies. So if you have foreign currencies, you'll be going to redemption centers. You'll be going to a redemption center anyway, but that's where you will turn in your cash, and those are for humanitarian projects. And so that will happen first, and it looks like what they're going to do is trigger that, and it will go through certainly the first part of the emergency broadcast system. So it'll be in the background. So while the normies are getting woken up, the humanitarians, the starseeds, those who are awake have already been woken up over the last 5 or 6 years. And so we don't need to watch that, really. So I think what they're going to do is have people going into redemption centers over this period of time. July the 1st is Canada Day in Canada, so that's the same thing as the 1776 Independence Day in the U.S. on July the 4th. Here's July the 4th. This is July the 1st. I think we're going to hear about Canada being part of the U.S. one way or the other. I know in the Calgary Stampede, which is where I'm close to, is going to have the premier and all of the parliamentarians that are going to be on site at the Stampede that you'll be able to ask questions of. And so I think there's going to be a big announcement July the 1st regarding Canada Day. So that's only 2 days away. Then we have the golden ticket. And the golden ticket has always been floating out there, and it's called the storm, so that equates to the emergency broadcast system. And here's the date, the 19th. That's the only date on it, really, in 1776. So you look at where we are, that's the 19th on the Julian calendar. We had done it for the Gregorian calendar, but obviously that did not work out. So it's called the golden ticket. The SWIFT system, which has been our system for sending money around the world to the Kabbalish banks, is gone on that date. That's July the 2nd. Okay, so July the 1st, July the 2nd. So one of these days is going to start the emergency broadcast system, because I've got this 10 days takes us to the day before the 11th, Jesus' birthday, but it could extend into Jesus' birthday as well. So it might start, EBS could start on the 2nd, for example. That'd give it 10 days. And it may not be a full 10 days, but they've always said it would be. It's just that things, they've also said, can change at the last minute. Then you got Independence Day. That's going to be a big celebration. It looks like, I didn't think they would run that during the emergency broadcast system, but it seems like it's going to be a little bit of a break after 3 days, one way or the other, 3 or 4 days. And then they've always talked about the first 3 days of the emergency broadcast system being the most important, where everything will be shut down. And then in the smaller cities and, farmland and that sort of thing, where there aren't that many large centers, they will open it up, I believe. And they want to keep people locked down as little as possible. And that's been an ongoing theme for quite some time. So there you have it. Now, I think I talked about 7/12 and why that's there. I consider that to be the end. This is Jesus' birthday, emergency broadcast system, 10 days, and we got the CERN shut down, and I think the market top is here. Things are starting to happen very quickly. This is supposed to be a bang, 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 get her done situation from here on in. So this is our week, folks. This is our week, and then it will continue through, and then we will have our freedom at the end on the 12th. And that is looking at our calendar for the beginning of July, really, and Independence Day. So we've got July the 1st in Canada, which is Canada Day. That's our Independence Day. And then in the U.S., it's Independence Days, because this is a worldwide event. It's going to happen all around the world. So it's not just the U.S. I know a lot of the things that we do in Telegram are just for the U.S., but this is a much bigger deal than that. So get excited. This is over. With all the arrests this week, and we see everything kind of moving into place. Everything is done in terms of the RV, and there have been major arrests and more arrests to come. So Iraq is pretty well finished up, and they've gotten rid of a lot of the corruption, and we needed that to happen in order for the RV to move forward. So we're there. I'm excited. You get excited. Our freedom is really only a little more than 10 days away. Let's say 12 or 13 is what I'm looking at. And you'll know it because there will be more celebrations. And I'm sure there's going to be some announcements on July the 4th, which will be very big announcements. And then, of course, at the end. And that's my report for June 29th. Full moon, looking for a market top next, and the scare event, and then I think we move into the emergency broadcast system here. So, get ready.